back with another episode of Feeling Seen, a UNC CAPS podcast about all things related to mental health, coping, and a little bit of fun stuff too about us as clinicians here. I'm Dr. Erin Scott, and I am joined today with my colleague, Dr. Anthony Teasdale, and we are going to talk today about gratitude. Mm. So, Anthony, when you hear the word gratitude, what comes to mind?
Several things, but really the idea of it being a value that I hold with it. And you asked what comes to mind. So one of the things that comes to mind is my dad.
Mm.
I think he's really sort of the one of the best people I can think of in terms of expressed gratitude and appreciation. I tend to be the planner for the family, planning events, things for us to go do, maybe trips to take. And if we do any of that, use very much during it, he'll be talking about how much he appreciates the effort that went into getting us there, how much he's enjoying what's happening, and just it's good to be there together. But then, and then after, he'll be saying how grateful he is and appreciative he is that that happened and the effort that went into it. And so he's really
Um,
just someone I think about when it comes to that, or even if I think about going to restaurants and he'll talk to the wait staff as it's happening of saying, "You're doing a good job for us," is his statement.
mm,
And he'll be telling them that as we're going along in the meal, he says it at the end. So it's not just let's leave a tip and that's supposed to indicate something, but he's verbally saying,
verbally.
"I appreciate this. We're really grateful to have you. You're doing a really nice job for us." And so when you say gratitude, he's one of his face comes to my mind to sort of
Yeah.
think about that and think about something I want to emulate in my own life because I know what that feels like to receive.
Hmm.
Your efforts are appreciated and that there's a sense of gratitude for what you've done and how you showed up because that can be a way that I show my love is to organize and to think about what do I know about the people I'm with family and friends and what do they like and to put that into whatever my plan is. And so then to know they saw that meant something
Yeah.
that really is touching for me and really holds a lot of value for me. So that's one thing that comes to mind is my dad when you say the idea of
Yeah.
gratitude.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, he sounds like a lovely person and just really has embraced um, the appreciation that I think it comes when I think of gratitude. It's behind that is this idea and this recognition that there is often effort put behind things, behind the scenes. There's a lot that goes into maybe making something work or something go right or something look a certain way. And I think gratitude is just that recognition of appreciation for whether it's someone's effort, someone's thoughtfulness, someone's attention to detail, to caring, and I think that gratitude is an attitude that we can all adopt, right, in various ways. Some people are more verbal, and so it's the appreciation comes from him saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." But I've also had people express their gratitude in actions, right, by taking care of something, and I appreciate that you always do this, so I'll do this. And so I think there are ways that you can show gratitude, but certainly the one that is more um, where the receiver can hear it very clearly and you can sort of be direct is in verbally sharing. So your dad has got it, right? He's throughout life, or maybe that's his personality. He's been able to recognize that things don't just happen by a magic wand, that somebody somewhere put effort into it. Um, and I think as we think about gratitude, so more maybe more broadly, and then sort of bring it home to how we can start to have a practice of gratitude in our own life. I think about the recognition of all the ways that things had to come together to make something happen, right? And that could be something even as simple as getting in your car and driving and arriving somewhere safely. that there was skill on your part, but also the part of other drivers. And there's, that the mechanics of your car had to work. And so you can really, if you think about gratitude on a depth level, you can really see it in everything. You can find ways to recognize it, even when you're having a really uh, maybe not so great day, or there's elements of your day that aren't going well. I think that if you have a practice of gratitude, you can still find pieces to point that out. So, something that my family does is every night we have a conversation at dinner called your peak, your pit, and your elephant. And I'll explain those three categories. Some people do rose and thorn, or bud and rosebud and thorn, or something like that. But so your peak is recognizing that what was a high point, it doesn't have to be the highest point, but what's something that stands out that was just a really happy or high point of your day? And then your pit was maybe something that wasn't so great, right? That maybe was hard or difficult. And then your elephant is where gratitude comes in, something that you appreciate, something that you saw, something that happened to you or someone else that you got to do for someone else that, is just sort of, it could be a one-off, but just something that marked that day. And so we do that pretty much every night. We try to eat dinner together at the dinner table every night. And that has really helped me stay in a place of gratitude, Anthony, because I think just by my nature, I can be a person who can sort of look at a day and say, oh, this was a bad day, right? If I had a few things happen in that day. But asking myself to slow down and pick out pieces, even in a day when a lot of things maybe didn't go right, to find something that maybe made me smile or made me happy or made me laugh, it helps me then to not globally assess the day as terrible, even though there were certainly some hard moments. But then specifically the elephant, and I don't know how we came up with that. I think my daughter just said like it rhymes with pit. I think when she was little, maybe she thought it rhymed. So, but that is designed to have us focus on gratitude, something that either happened to us or a way that we helped someone, a kindness that was extended, something unexpected that we just really yeah, appreciate about the day. So I wanted to share that because I think that that's a way that I have now, because we've been doing it so long, it's trained me to look for things because I'm like, okay, at some point today, I've got to reflect on the day. So I can't say it's all bad. I got to find those moments that, yeah, that, something kind of nice happened. Yeah, someone held the door for me. Someone brought in treats to the break room. I'm grateful for that. I appreciate that someone spent time cooking and preparing and thought enough of us to bring them in, right? So,
I
um,
think that's a beautiful, yeah, I love that, Aaron. I think that that's a beautiful example that that sort of game your family plays, but also what you noticed about the impact for you of kind of having that as a practice and how it helps you tune in where maybe
yes.
at times you can head towards a focus on what didn't go well or what didn't I like as much and kind of it brings you back to something that can be balanced in that or remind you, oh, really? Yeah, these things really happened. And so I love that you mentioned that and that gave that example. And I think it also illustrates that idea of where gratitude can be powerful in that you mentioned like maybe being grateful because someone brought in a snack you at work you didn't expect, or that all these little things
Yes.
can add up and have a real importance. We can have a real tendency to focus on what didn't go as expected, what didn't go right, what we didn't like, and sometimes no matter how small. But then when things go well, we can just sort of, it can almost be
Mm,
ignored
mm,
or like, ah, that was just supposed to happen. Keep it moving. And so we can over attend to the negative and
mm.
not be in this place of practiced gratitude. And then that
Yeah.
has real impacts for mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it does.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of my, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and one of the quotes that I love from Star Wars is when Qui-Gon, one of the Jedi Masters, tells the little boy Anakin, "Always remember, your focus determines your reality." And I
Mhm.
love that quote, thinking about what we do, and as I think about gratitude, because it is that sort of idea that if
Mm.
we focus on the negative, we tend to be negative in our
Yes.
energy, in our mood. We can be more
Yes.
down. That can be whereas with gratitude and the intention to focus on what am I really grateful for right now in myself, in my life, in others, in the world, that can really refocus us in a
Yeah.
really powerful way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that quote. I like that. That's going to stick with me for a while. And kind of as you was talking, I thought about how for some people, leaning into gratitude is a practice, right? It's not always something that you can do without putting forth some intentionality and some thought. I can't be the only one who maybe leans towards, um, nah, this was a horrible day, and then maybe catastrophizing a bit, or just maybe painting with more of a um, negative, neutral to negative broad stroke. So I think whether it's, having your own version of the peak and pit and elephant or, having someone in your life that you see as a model of gratitude, I think that this is something that anybody can work on and the progress can be slow, but it's recognizing even the small things. Like you said, someone bringing cookies or treats to the break room. I'm grateful for today. I was thinking about how the weather today it's been cooler. And after days and days and days of, I like the heat, but the 100-degree kind of wet, humid weather, it was nice to have a day yesterday where you could sit outside and eat because it was like very pleasant. So I was really grateful that the weather um, turned. So I think that it's not about not recognizing that things are hard. We get this whenever I'm teaching self-compassion, people will sort of have this idea that if I am compassionate towards myself, or if I give myself grace or compassion, that I'm not holding myself to a high standard and I'm being too easy on myself and almost like I got to keep my foot on my neck to get things done. I actually don't think that that's the only way to motivate people. And I think that's one way. I don't think it's the healthiest way. But, it's not to say, I'm not asking you to sort of not acknowledge that things are difficult, right? Or that things you might want things to be different, or even if you want to use the term better. But I think for me, gratitude is recognizing that there are likely moments, even in hard stuff, that if you were to sort of examine and lift up out of that hardness, that you could say, this wasn't bad, or I appreciate that this happened. And it may be harder to find. You may have to do more work to sift through. I can't pretend that there aren't people who have really, really hard backgrounds and life stories and lived experiences. And I'm certainly not in any way negating that. But I think a practice of gratitude allows you, even in that, to hold that as a truth, and that maybe you also have a really supportive community, or also maybe you are in a space now where you have resources available to you that you didn't have at the time, and that can be something to be grateful for. So I just wanted to add that it's a practice, it's not an all or nothing, that you either have or you don't. I think it's something that you can cultivate. We're trying to cultivate it in our young daughter, but it's something even as old as I am that I need that practice to remind myself, because I can otherwise I can sort of fall into, we're human. I can fall into, um, I just use that as my example of catastrophizing things and sort of then globally painting the day as like, oh, that was a terrible day. That was a bad day. And granted, there were lots of hard, not so pleasant things in that day, but that wasn't every minute of it wasn't every single second, to be honest. So I think it helps mindfulness. I think gratitude and mindfulness feel connected to me because it requires you to slow down and to really be introspective and aware. But it also is something I want for our listening audience to hear, that wherever you are, you can start, right? You don't have to, I think Anthony's dad is a great example of where you could maybe try to aim to be, and then just recognizing and then verbalizing when you see it. But if you're not there, that's okay. Start where you are and just try to look for things that are happening to you, around you, for you, even with people you know and love, that you can appreciate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And as with many things, as I listen to you talk, Aaron, as with many things, it's not either or, it's not one or the other. And so hard things can be happening, and that doesn't mean that there's nothing to be grateful for.
Hmm.
And actually going through the hard things, a focus on gratitude can make the hard things not as hard or not
Hmm.
as debilitating versus if it's all my focus, again, my focus is all here. So there could be a lot of hard, but if there's a lot of things
Hmm.
to be grateful for, then it can get again out of balance and it can make it
Yes.
hard to even deal with the very real hard things
Thanks. Yeah.
or
This comes up quite
harder.
a bit harder. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You just got the wheels spinning, and I was thinking about that this topic comes up in chronic illness group quite a bit. And so one of the groups that I run here at CAPS is a chronic illness support group, chronic for folks living with chronic illness and chronic pain. And one of the things that research has shown, but also anecdotally we comes up in group is the idea that when we and if you think about mindfulness and the root of mindfulness and John Kabat-Zinn and how really pain and studying pain research and pain pathways was how we got the roots of our modern way we understand mindfulness. And that when we overly focus on the suffering that it can be a part of pain, pain is inevitable. We talked in an earlier episode about failure, right?
Yeah,
Some could say that there's an element of pain to that as well.
yeah,
But pain is part of the human condition.
yeah,
But suffering, which is sort of sitting in the disempowerment of pain, thinking about the closed loops and lack of choice and power and control that you have in that pain, just leads to more pain.
yeah,
Suffering just leads to actually that pain feeling more exacerbated. And there's been research to back this. This isn't just, you don't have to just take this from me. But the idea of gratitude, the idea of recognizing that even in hard moments of pain, of in maybe capacity and ability being impacted, that are there things that you can focus on that um, are sort of contrary to that or counter that a bit. And so that's where mindfulness and gratitude feel connected to me. But as you were talking, I thought about how often that comes up in group.
yeah,
And so how often the coping becomes, yes, there is totally a space. And part of what this support space is for is to be able to find community to talk about some of the challenges and some of the pain. And we don't stay there, right? And so part of what we do is think about, okay, and what else? What are some things that happened for you today that maybe surprised you? How did your body, because we talk about the failing of the body, that's a common thing that comes up. But are there some ways that your body surprised you today? Are there some things that you were able to do that you didn't think that you could do? And that conversation is so encouraging and inspiring. It doesn't mean that the pain also isn't there, to your point, that both can be true, but people feel more empowered when they're able to not sit in this cycle of, gosh, I'm just in pain. It's going to be, and especially with chronic illness, chronic pain where there's no end in sight. I have a lot of compassion and understanding for why that can be, also because of my own lived experience, why that can be easy to fall into this sort of suffering mentality and mindset. And so I have to actively work to find moments, even within a painful procedure, a painful episode that isn't, right? Or that I can even still be like, huh, yes, that happened, sure. But you know what? I would really, really appreciate that I got up today headache free and started the day headache free, or had a little bit of a break in there. There was some ability that kind of returned, and so I think chronic illness is a really good space where we get to practice gratitude, especially if you're in my group, you're going to hear about it. But I think just folks living with illnesses and abilities that are compromised, that's a really nice opportunity to fold in mindfulness and gratitude.
yeah. I love that again that you mentioned that. Yeah, I love that idea of and talk a lot about it, that idea of pain versus suffering. And yeah, pain being, like you said, a natural, inevitable part of the human experience, but suffering being the other things we layer on, the judgments and how we approach pain, the perspective we take to pain, and if it is that added layer of this means I'm bad and I've done something wrong to deserve this, and that is what creates the suffering. The pain will be there regardless, but then
Mhm.
we have a say in whether that becomes suffering, and something that can help it not become suffering is gratitude and gratitude practice and gratitude focus. And that can be applied even with, like, let's say chronic illness, because there can still be those the moments of gratitude of I'm feeling this, but I still have these things I'm grateful for within my life. Or it could even be when there's a pause in whatever
Yes,
pain or issue is
yes,
happening with the condition. It could be a recognition of, oh, I feel really grateful in this moment that
yes,
that has paused. It doesn't mean it won't be back, but right now I'm recognizing I'm grateful for what I'm able
yes,
to do right now in this moment where that's
yes,
calmed. And so that can be really important versus you could also take a perspective of, oh, it calmed. Oh no, it's coming back. Oh no. And that then isn't going to afford you that sense of gratitude. And so in a moment of respite, you won't actually feel the
rested.
because
Hmm.
you're not in this place of recognition and gratitude. You're in still a place of fear and it's already happened. So you're still in suffering, even if
Yes.
that pain has actually calmed in that moment. And so
But
I
the psychological processes that, yeah, I hear you, and I think about how it also helps rewrite the narrative of it gives pain for this, it gives space for the pain, but the pain isn't everything. Where sometimes with people living with chronic pain, chronic illness, it can feel that way. But being great, having a practice of gratitude and mindfulness helps remind you, oh, yes, that is happening to me. That is a physical sensation, or if it's a mental health condition, that is a something that's happening to me. And right, it's not, but it's the and. I'm grateful that I'm still able to be in school, or I'm able to. I might need some breaks, I might need rest, but I'm still able to have this experience, to have a collegiate experience, to have a experience, excuse me. So it helps to me give the pain a place in your life, but it doesn't become the focal point, which it's really um, easy to make it the focal point, especially if your days are filled with doctor visits and appointments and lots of things focused on the issue. But mindfulness and gratitude, I think, help remind you that you're more than just what you're feeling, what you're going through, right? That you have other identities, other experiences, and so, yeah, I really like what you said about, yeah, the sort of pain being maybe we can think about it maybe more of the biological, physiological sort of piece that will happen to all of us in some way. It's a part of the human condition, but the all the things we layer on, the psychological, those pieces are where suffering can really come in. And that's where we have control too, because we can maybe minimize a bit or maybe manage a bit the pain, but we often don't have a lot of control over the pain piece, but we can control the suffering, how much we let it take over uh, our life. So I could go on and on. That's a space that's really close to my heart, but it's a space where gratitude really is a practice that we're talking about, and I'm trying to encourage folks to look for those spaces because I think it changes. And I've heard feedback that it really changes the way people see themselves, or they see even their condition as, yes, a part of me, but not everything, not all of me. I'm also a friend, a student, a partner. If I'm on I have people on all kinds of student, or it just reminds you that there's all kinds of other things than this issue that you could see how it could be a focal point when it takes up a lot of energy to be living with a chronic illness. So again, I know that that's a part of what we're talking about that's
no, it's a
salient to me, but I
no,
think
it's a
gratitude
great
is just so important.
yeah, it's a great part. I'm glad you brought it in because it so connects. But it goes to this idea too of certainly we know this ourselves through our practice um and that kind of thing, but we're not just sort of talking in absence of literature and research on this. And so when you talk about why mindfulness became such a major component of therapy, the world of mental health and psychology, and it's borrowing from Eastern practices and bringing that in, but then it's especially being researched, the initial stages that were in what you're talking about pain, and pain management, and noticing that people could have the same condition and that could not change at all,
Yeah.
but other markers of well-being, mood, etc., could actually grow and improve if people were in this place of practice mindfulness and noticing other things in their life and gratitude and not just a sole focus on pain
On the
and the
map.
condition that they're going through. And so that's well researched, well proven, and it is a big thing. And that's so I think that that's important too. These aren't just our musings,
Right.
things, but this is really backed up by literature and research. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about that around gratitude and some of the things we know or some aspects of literature or research, things around that. And so I'm drawing some pieces of this from the National Alliance on Mental Illness California site, and they have a really nice site on the impact of gratitude on mental health. Um, and so just wanted to sort of speak to that a
Okay.
bit in this. And so, as you won't be surprised, it runs down some various studies. And so it talks about many studies have really noticed that to focus on gratitude, to count our blessings, can lead to people indicating more happiness and less depression. And in one study, one group found that when they wrote about things they were grateful for that had occurred during the week, and other groups wrote about daily irritations and things that annoyed
Mm.
them or displeased them. And a third group wrote about events that had affected them with no emphasis on sort of a positive or a negative. And after 10 weeks, what they found is that those who wrote about gratitude were more optimistic, felt better about their lives, and there was a connection between like using more positive words and positivity
Mm.
versus a focus on the negative. So again, that focus on gratitude, what am I grateful for? What's going well? Help to shift things about mood and well-being. So that's been shown in studies like this one and in other ones with a practice of writing out things that
Yes.
we're grateful for, writing to someone about things someone was grateful for. So that's been shown in research. There have been other studies that have shown things about giving thanks and counting blessings can help people sleep better, lower stress, and improve interpersonal relationships. So if we think about those things as well, the ways we can have sleep interrupted because of sitting in a space of worry or holding stress, and what it can mean to shift and go to that place of gratitude and what I'm
Mm.
thankful for, and how that can help with that. And so, again, another example of how studies have shown things about, yeah, the impact on improved sleep, less stress, and then even improved relationships. And so this comes up a lot in couples. Is a good example. So if we think about, and maybe it'll be hard for people to think about giving gratitude about things with them and in their life, but if we think about our interactions with other people, it's harder to interact and have a lot of the connections I think we want if we come at things where we're holding a general negativity. If
Yes.
we're in a space of negativity, then the energy we give off doesn't tell people come closer and get
Mm.
closer. It may not be as connecting because sometimes we can connect through shared pain and difficulty, but often it may not, that may be too much at different times, or we may not want to sit in that always. And so it can also be good to connect through something lighter and a sense of thankfulness and appreciation, or just our mood being in a different place with that and how
Mm.
that helps um, with relationships. And so that's where a gratitude piece can be
Yeah.
important.
As you were talking, I thought about, when you filter out the good and overly focus on the negative or the things that, need to be improved upon, you miss so much, right? And we've talked in other episodes about how people can develop this mindset of all or nothing. I'm either that this one thing is connected to whether I succeed or fail. And I think it's that selective filtering sometimes that we can do, and that way that we can attach, we can, and it's connected to gratitude to me in that, if you are looking for all of the negative, you'll find it. But similarly, if you look for the positive, you'll also find it as well, right? And so I don't know what it is about human nature where I haven't done enough research about this, where maybe for certain people, there may be more, it's like you were saying earlier, maybe it's harder to find the positive or to find the pieces of gratitude and easier maybe to focus on the things that we need to improve or work on. But connected to those areas that you mentioned, I think it's also about, yeah, where you spend your energy. Because if you are writing, to your example of the writing, if I'm asked to think about and reflect on my day of all the things that went wrong, yeah, I'm sure I can think those can be numerous. But then I think it can easily slip into that this is again that global assessment of the day when that's not actually accurate. On the other hand, if you can, because I want to say this piece too. I don't think that gratitude always has to be that it was something that was positive and great and over the top, right? That I think that you could be grateful that something was like just okay, right? That like it wasn't terrible. Like I think that you can also focus on that too. So those writing exercises that you demonstrated, and we have a therapeutic writing group here too, which is great, and it uses prompts to help folks because there's therapeutic value in writing. There's a lot of healing that comes through writing, but I'm not at all surprised that in journaling and focusing and asked to focus on things that you're grateful for, that people felt more optimistic. I think that that makes sense to me because I think in the times when I've focused on let me think, then I'm more negative. I'm like embodying all of that negativity. But when I'm thinking about yeah, if I'm reflecting on the things that were neutral or net positive, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, it was a pretty good day. Overall, I mean, I kind of assess it overall as more, yeah, better and like a happier day. So anyway, I just wanted to insert that makes sense to me. To me, it's that filtering that can sometimes happen where you can overly focus and then it's like nothing good happened to you, and that's not accurate.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good example because yeah, I think that's an important part of gratitude practices. There's nothing too small. So it can be we can take for granted things like I'm grateful I opened my eyes today and that I drew breath and that I'm generally in good health within my body and that I arrived safely at the office. And there could be a lot of things to be grateful for, but we don't necessarily focus on it or think of it in that way. But if any little piece didn't go as expected, then I might could have a tendency to go to, but my cereal was off and it's like, and it's that tendency that we can have that makes, yeah, the gratitude practice really, really important, that there's nothing too small.
Yeah.
And I think there are things about being wired for survival and reasons our brains can go to negative material, but also ways of still working on adapting that we needed to be adapted to be scared of that tiger that could leap out of the bushes and kill us. But that's not necessarily the world we inhabit now as we build technology and build some of our civilizations and that kind of things. And so some of those things aren't present as much anymore, but we could still have some of that wiring to look for the threats and attend to what's not going as well.
Yeah.
That's why, again, when we talk about practice, that's why something like gratitude has to be an intentional practice because either because of wiring as human beings or especially maybe our some of what we already carry biologically with then experience that leads us to focus on the negative because maybe we've had abuse and trauma and other kinds of things that have made us hyper vigilant for where
Mm,
that coming from. And so it makes sense then we might attend to what's not going as well because we're trying to
protect.
save and protect. And that's why then gratitude is something that has to be intentional and be a practice. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, I was thinking about the mental health conditions that can kind of be connected as you were talking about. Yeah, trauma, anxiety, depression, I think could be, and I don't want to oversimplify these things and make it a one-to-one correlation, but I think there's elements in all of those where a practice of gratitude can be really powerful to, yeah, to sort of retrain your brain, to not, yeah, overly focus on the threats and it's not to say that there aren't, again, we've said this before, it's not to say that there aren't things that aren't going well, that aren't maybe great, that are happening to you, but it's to sort of increase the flexibility where you're not filtering out also the really good or even again neutral. I appreciate even neutral things. Yeah, like being able to yeah, get up, like you said, get up this, I guess that's a positive thing. But even things that maybe someone would weigh a net neutral, I think is still something to be grateful for and have gratitude toward. So I'm curious in ways that maybe gratitude in your clinical work, whether in group or individual, maybe we could speak to ways that we have techniques that we've done or ways that we've introduced the concept of gratitude. I've shared a little bit about in chronic illness group how it's come up. How about in your work with either individual or in a group? Have you talked about gratitude? Is that connected to some of the work that you do?
Yeah, it's definitely been connected to the work that I do, of talking with people about gratitude, the idea of establishing gratitude practice. And one of the main ways that I do that is through an activity called Gratitude Jar. So this can look many different ways, actually, but essentially it's the idea of creating some kind of vessel or container. So people will maybe take some kind of vase they have, and you can have fun with it and decorate it. So that's been a great thing of this activity is if someone's really into decoration and things about artistic, it can be a place of joy to focus on the process of what do I want to put on my gratitude jar and how do I want to decorate it? And it can really be anything. That's why I say it's called gratitude jar, but it doesn't have to get hung up on that it be a jar. So it can
Okay.
be any sort of container. So everything from, I think I had somebody create, their gratitude jar out of Legos. So they made
Oh,
it out of, so it's any kind of, let's say, container, essentially something that can serve as a container and you can have fun with it. Like I said, build it out of Legos. You can decorate some kind of jar with all kinds of images and paint and colors and have a lot of fun with that. But it's to get some kind of container and decorate that and do what you want to do with that. And then the idea is to help you with a practice. Most classically, you would potentially daily write down a couple things that you're grateful for with right then in that moment within that day. And then you would put that in the jar
okay.
such that you're collecting
All of them.
memories of gratitude. And that can build up and it can be something you can come back to and pull out and revisit. And so not only the process of doing it each time, but then it being something you can revisit and look at
Hmm.
really helpful and powerful for people and really fits with research around gratitude, which is creating a practice and that the
Yes.
impacts won't be noticed immediately when you're doing it. But if you do it consistently over several weeks, several months, you will notice impacts from it. And then if you do that a little bit longer, it can start to have long-term, sort of permanent impacts for people around mental mental health
Wow.
kinds of markers. So that's really one that I love a lot and will recommend to people and that people really can get into. Because like I said, there can be the aspect of decorating your
Yes.
jar and doing that, the aspect of adding to the jar with notations and things. But I've had people adjust it at times where maybe they do the gratitude first on their phone because they're holding it and they carry it with them. And so they put it in a notes thing. And then eventually maybe they write it down or add it in some way. It could even be added as instead of you writing it, maybe you thought about your gratitude through I want to cut this out of a magazine or I see this object or this thing I want to add and it reminds you of it's a reminder or image of something you're grateful for and so people can adjust it based on
Um,
what fits for them. So I gave the most classic example, but it can be adjusted.
other things, yeah.
Another place that's been really cool is with couples. and it can be used in a variety of ways. And so, again, as we talk about gratitude, again, if people struggle with the idea of how will I benefit from, or it would be so hard for me to be grateful about things in my life or about myself, one thing that might help people is to think about being in a couple, either a romantic or just with a friend or anything like that, that we can often get into relationships where we aren't actually telling the other person things we appreciate,
Mhm.
grateful for that they do, how they show up, what they mean for our life. And if we get in that, and the only time they hear feedback from us is, you didn't do this, this wasn't good, I want it a different way. I
Yeah.
think most of us know what that can set up in a relationship. It can seem like, oh, everything I do is bad. I never hear a way that I'm appreciated. And the
Mhm.
relationship then can feel imbalanced. And what can set in is a sense of, I'm not resentment. I'm not appreciated. You don't really care about me. You don't really want me here. And that could be very much not true for the other person. But again, much like in our lives and with ourselves, we're not staying mindful of the balance and the idea of it can still be important to find ways to express this is going well. I appreciate this. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you and I'm grateful for these things you do. And so gratitude jar again can be really helpful for couples in a variety of ways. And I've had couples do it where sometimes it's just that it's that the couple can have a project to do together and they're adding individual things they're grateful for to the jar together, and that brings them together. Sometimes I've had couples use it as a way to express gratitude towards each other. So they're adding things
Mhm.
to the jar about things they're grateful for in the other. And then they usually will have some kind of, let's say, weekly meeting where they're pulling those things out and then they're expressing that to each other to get into a practice as a
Mhm.
couple of telling each other, I am grateful for this about you, about us,
Yeah.
and so that brings them closer together where maybe they've had that issue of, I think in many ways we have strengths and we're doing well, but we actually don't express that. So many times we feel hurt by each other and we question, am I really valued here? Am I really appreciated? What do I bring?
Oh.
Am I loved? And so it's been also a really powerful
Oh.
activity for couples.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm curious what people's reactions are to when you're introducing gratitude in individual or in couples. Are people like, absolutely, that makes sense? Are you having to do a little bit of, coaxing or yeah, I'm just curious in this we've talked about all the reasons and how our brains can be trained to sort of, yeah, miss that. So I'm just curious what the typical reaction is when you're introducing this.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. It's been really positive for the most part. There hasn't been tons of now. People I brought that up to have really, it seemed to make sense to them. They've liked the idea. Many people have reacted with a lot of excitement. Some of what I was sharing with you has really come from the people I've worked with, where they're like, I could decorate this and do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I hadn't necessarily considered that. Or the idea of like somehow it could play out in couples that actually came from, or I think I first started doing that because I suggested it for the person individually, and they said, I could really do this with my wife.
Mhm.
And I think she'd like it. And so that's how it became, oh, I could use this for couples. And it could be, so people have been really positive about it.
Yeah.
As an activity, and we even did it a couple years ago when I helped to run our creativity group at CAPS. It was one of the activities that we did there, and people enjoyed it. So yeah, people have really
Taken to
enjoyed it.
it. Yeah.
Seemed to make sense to people.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. I think it makes me think probably most people do want to embrace gratitude and recognize the benefits of being more thoughtful, more appreciative. But just maybe need some guidelines and need some ways to help start that practice. So that doesn't surprise me at all. Again, many of our groups infuse whether it's gratitude or mindfulness, which to me is connected for some of the reasons we talked about. But yeah, that fits with what I've experienced when we have those conversations is there's not usually a lot of pushback because I think people do recognize that they may not always connect that like my mood is improved and some of the research-based things we talked about today. But I think most people can recognize that, yeah, when I it like it can be like my default sometimes to maybe be a little bit more negative, or not focus on the things that I'm doing well, that my friend is doing well, that my roommate is, that I really appreciate about my parents, my roommates, my partner, myself, even, the idea of gratitude, like you said, can be extended to self as well. So that makes sense to me. That excites me. I'm thinking about ways I could use some of elements of that in the clinical work, because I think a core piece, a lot of folks struggle with a critical, self-criticism, and it's normally negative and very much about what they're not doing. And so to sort of shift that and increase that flexibility, I think could be really helpful. So yeah, I appreciate hearing about that. And yeah, it's a way to bring like a lot of things, creativity. There's no right or wrong way to make it. You've got lots of options. You said it doesn't have to be, it just needs to contain. It could look like a lot of different things. So in a way, in a time when, especially in college, when people might sort of be used to very clear direction and instructions on this is what something has to look like, to introduce the idea of like, nope, you can make it look like whatever you want, whatever you feel led to make it appear. And yeah, I'm thinking you could even do different colors for different people, or different areas of your life. Could be different slips of paper or different colored pens. If you Yeah, you just already thinking of the variety of ways that this could be helpful.
For sure, for sure. So one thing I was thinking about, if you'd be up for it, was that I might take you through a bit of a gratitude meditation.
Yeah, yeah, great. Let me get my meditating stance on. Feet on the floor.
So yeah, you can feel free to take some deep breaths, and if it feels comfortable and safe for you, you can close your eyes and just let yourself settle into this moment, knowing you don't need to be anywhere else or do anything else, but just to be present right now in the moment, present with the breath and with your body. So just allow yourself to take those deep breaths. So gratitude is a gracious acknowledgement of all that sustains us, a bow to our blessings, great and small, an appreciation of the moments of good fortune that sustain our life every day. We have so much to be grateful for. Gratitude is confidence in life itself. It is not sentimental, not jealous, nor judgmental. Gratitude does not envy or compare. Gratitude receives in wonder the myriad offerings of the rain and the earth, the care that supports every single life. As gratitude grows, it gives rise to joy. We experience the courage to rejoice in our own good fortune and in the good fortune of others. Joy is natural to an open heart. In it, we are not afraid of pleasure. We do not mistakenly believe it is disloyal to the suffering of the world to honor the happiness we have been given. Like gratitude, joy gladdens the heart. We can be joyful for people we love, for moments of goodness, for sunlight and trees, and for the breath within our breast. As our joy grows, we finally discover a happiness without cause. Like an innocent child who does not have to do anything to be happy, we can rejoice in life itself, in being alive. So let yourself sit quietly and at ease. Allow your body to be relaxed and open, your breath natural, your heart easy. Begin the practice of gratitude by feeling how year after year you have cared for your own life. Now let yourself begin to acknowledge all that has supported you in this care. With gratitude, I remember the people, animals, plants, insects, creatures of the sky and sea, air and water, fire and earth, all whose joyful exertion blesses my life every day. With gratitude, I remember the care and labor of 1,000 generations of elders and ancestors who came before me. I offer my gratitude for the safety and well-being I have been given. I offer my gratitude for the blessing of this earth I have been given. I offer my gratitude for the measure of health I have been given. I offer my gratitude for the family and friends I have been given. I offer my gratitude for the community I have been given. I offer my gratitude for the teachings and lessons I have been given. I offer my gratitude for the life I have been given. Just as we are grateful for our blessings, so we can be grateful for the blessings of others. Continue to breathe gently. Bring to mind someone you care about, someone it is easy to rejoice for. Picture them and feel the natural joy you have for their well-being, for their happiness and success. With each breath, offer them your grateful, heartfelt wishes. May you be joyful. May your happiness increase. May you not be separated from great happiness. May your good fortune and the causes for your joy and happiness increase. Sense the sympathetic joy and caring in each phrase. When you feel some degree of natural gratitude for the happiness of this loved one, extend this practice to another person you care about. Recite the same simple phrases that express your heart's intention. Then gradually open the meditation to include neutral people, difficult people, and even enemies, until you extend sympathetic joy to all beings everywhere, young and old, near and far. So feel free to stay in this feeling, in this space, in this moment. Take a few more deep breaths, extend gratitude to wherever you wish, and focus on that. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Oh,
Yeah, how did you experience that?
that was great. It really, yeah, I felt connected. Yeah, I feel calm. I always love meditating because it helps me, yeah, slow down so my body feels more grounded and calm. And a part that really struck me, and it made me think about, there was a part where you said it's not disloyal to the suffering of humans to sort of embrace joy. And I thought about how often that feels like a conflict that, in this current sort of socio-political time, but even in times when I've been in grieving and mourning, and I think this comes up in grief, that it's not disloyal to that process to also be grateful or find joy. And so hearing that gave permission to sort of hold multiple feelings at once. And I hadn't realized that that's something that I have often felt, well, there's so much going on in this world. How dare I be, excited about, I don't know, this frivolous little thing when there are children starving. And it's like it's not disloyal to that reality to embrace joy when you can. So that was a really helpful, yeah, reminder.
Yeah, that's great. And as usual, I love your reflections and yeah, that part is really, like you said, I think really important for people because it can be hard at times to be okay with embracing joy and for reasons like you said, if it's a grief situation, like am I not honoring the person by staying in a
Yeah.
constant state of sadness or despair? Or other things where it just can seem like it's not okay for me to stay in a place of joy and honor that, or somehow I'm not being realistic, or I'm not honoring that I'm having a hard time in other ways, or other people are. Or it's, yeah, that again, like you said, and both can be true.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that really, really stood out to me. The other piece that I was reflecting on is when I was able to, embrace gratitude for myself. Then when you asked to extend it to, you said neutral people and then even people who are difficult and then even enemies, I found that easier than I think it would have been if I hadn't also had it for myself and been able to embrace that and didn't feel like I was giving anything away or losing anything by extending that to them. Whereas in the past, when I've tried to maybe practice forgiveness, maybe prematurely or haven't really processed my feelings behind some betrayal or something like that, it's felt like I was losing something by extending that to them. But it didn't feel that way today. It felt like, yeah, like there's enough or of gratitude to extend out. It doesn't take away from what I'm feeling for myself. So that was really powerful as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and it's powerful to hear you say that and what you took from that. So I think again, this can be meditation, can be another way to establish a sense of gratitude practice in our lives. And can be a great way to tune into, like you said, and interesting to hear you talk about things that maybe shifted or that maybe at other times you found difficult weren't as difficult when you were in this place of gratitude and maybe gratitude for yourself. It made it easier to give that gratitude to others or maybe particularly even people that are difficult
Little prickly people, yeah.
hard to give that to. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And so again, I'm really excited to have gotten to do this episode. Gratitude's really meaningful. I know we were both interested in this and excited to do it. And again, if people are interested, I think I named the one site, but there's tons out there about gratitude, lots of research behind this. And again, I'll just reiterate, I'm again looking at sort of one source, but the idea of a large study being conducted at Virginia Commonwealth showed that thankfulness predicted a significantly lower risk of major depression, generalized anxiety disorder, phobia, nicotine dependence, alcohol dependence, and drug abuse. And so,
Oh,
again,
wow.
the ways that gratitude has been found and linked to these positive markers, which all makes a lot of sense, even things that might be surprising to us, like the substance use kinds of things.
Yeah.
How's that connected? But again, since we know a lot of substance use is connected to emotional
Pain.
or other kinds of pain, and trying to sort of numb that or get through that in some ways, or that in a practice of gratitude, that can be a way to not have as much of that response or not need to numb out or
That
detach
much. Yeah.
from life. And so, again, just the power, there's much research and literature around this, but the power of a regular gratitude practice. And again, not to expect that I will do this one time and that will shift everything, but that is true of most things
Those things, yeah.
life. But if we develop a regular practice of it and a regular habit over time, that it does have really powerful and lasting effects. And so, really want to encourage our viewers and listeners to consider that in their lives and consider where they're at with gratitude and having more of a focus and a practice around gratitude in their life because it can really be life changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. I don't know that I can add anything to that, Anthony. This has been a great episode. Yeah, I've got ideas of ways to incorporate more gratitude into my own life. And yeah, just appreciate even that meditation that was really helpful to challenge some ideas that folks might also share about what it means to be grateful or have joy even when things are hard, and um, or when you're able to extend it to others even when people might be difficult people in your life. So I just really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm gonna hold on to that today. That's what I'm gonna hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah, really great. And even something people can build into practice and consider because there might be people who it's very important to them, their religious identity and their connection to a higher power. And that can be a place people talk about the idea of gratitude and appreciation and being grateful for what's given from that higher power, from God. And so that can be another place people could find themselves doing a gratitude practice, or maybe they already have a little bit of that in their daily sort of
Mhm.
spiritual religious practice as they pray and do other things. And so that could be another way. Maybe they're already doing aspects of this gratitude.
Layer it in.
So
Yeah,
to know that that can be a
yeah,
place people find some of this gratitude practice and folk
yeah.
being
I
great.
find it an additive. It doesn't take away from, like you were saying, people's practices. And I think it nicely pairs with spirituality or religious and folks who have faith and faith-based practices, because this is, again, a practice that is really about, yeah, finding it for yourself and then extending it to others. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Just the slowing down. I think that's so important. We mentioned it in another podcast, how it's just our brains can be going. And so just to slow down and tune inward and pay attention to the thoughts and the feelings and breathing, coming back to the breath. That's so important in mindfulness, was really, really helpful. So yeah, I hope that this inspires folks to take a little more look at gratitude and mindfulness. We've got several groups here at CAPS that infuse elements of that into the work. And we're happy to talk more and get folks connected to those groups. But even as on an individual level, yeah, I feel so full in this moment, and appreciate that guided meditation that really helped me focus on in the moment, finding gratitude and then extending it outward. So thank you. I'm grateful for you in this moment.
You're very welcome. And yeah, as we end, that is what I'm thinking of is being grateful for you, being grateful to be able to do this with you, this podcast, being able to work with you, call you my friend. I feel a lot of gratitude for that and your presence. And so yeah, really grateful for you and grateful for this experience. It's been really wonderful. So thank you, Erin, for showing up and what you shared. Thank you to listeners and viewers for letting us be a part of your life and giving us your time. And we hope that this has been helpful for you. And so, yeah, we'll sort of finish here. And as always, great to be with you on the Feeling Seen podcast.
And
Take
we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.